Nobody asked, nobody cared. Your time would be much better spent resting a bit. Cause here it is now and all of its shame. Show that no one wanted. Show that no one wanted.
So we are back. As promised, there have been so many. This is the first one of the year. This is the first podcast of the year, but a couple have been recorded, which are quite entertaining. And now that I've got this little malfunction of figuring out how to do these intros, which extraordinarily precluded me from posting things, which, when you think about it, is pretty lazy. But anyways, and nobody cares. Anyways, nobody cares. This is an extraordinarily cool situation, especially with this weekend, which I don't know. I did have a couple of buddies that just saw Batman v Superman : Dawn of Justice. And as much as we talked about it for the last week and we're like despising it, and I actually refused to go, they said that it didn't suck. So I don't know, whatever. I thought it looked awful, and every time I had to sit through the 2.5 minute trailer, it felt like an eternity. But anyways, back to this. This is super cool. 15 years ago or so, something like that, I was given the extraordinary opportunity to meet Frank Miller and interview him, which took about a year to set up. I was writing for, I think, Columbus Live at the time, and like DK2, which was the sequel to the seminal Batman comic, as far as I'm concerned, of my lifetime at least, Dark Knight Returns, and Frank Miller did that. Daredevil, 300, Sin City, so many different things, and so I spent a year I remember, and I finally just bluffed to it of like, I'm gonna be in New York, can you set me up with this interview finally? And the person working at DC that I had been chatting with for all that time finally capitulated and put us together at the Blue Bar at the Algonquin Hotel, a very, very famous, revered spot, basically right in the middle of Manhattan, and it was a very cool experience. Met him there, did an interview for about 45 minutes, drank a couple of Pilsner Urquells, and then actually turned off the recorder and chatted for another 45, which I think was the coolest part of the whole situation. I will say that at the very end, I did pull out my wares and had him sign a couple of comic books. Then had him do a little sketch for me of Batman's face, which is right behind me. And you know, I made a sketch for Frank Miller then on a napkin, which we both agreed he wasn't going to have by the time he got home. But Frank Miller is one of the greatest artists of any medium, as far as I'm concerned, of our time. He's influenced my photography more so than any photographer. The first time I really noticed that was at this thing called the Gallery Hop in Columbus. I went down there with my buddy Clint and set up in a very slapdash way this little thing to where other people were supplanting their income and doing things very professionally and lovely, and then I just wandered down there with a buddy and grabbed a piece of plywood from across the street and taped my 11 by 14 prints on it with a bottle of wine and a vitamin water, and then we ordered a pizza later, just delivered to us on the street. But it was that night, though, that I really realized the importance of Frank Miller on me, because I was reading this Sin City comic book and looking up at my prints, and there was this, I think it was a shot of Jet, to be quite exact, if I can remember correctly, and it was just lines on the picture, and I looked at that, and I looked down at the comic book, and I looked up again, and I was like, oh, that's where I got it from. So, yeah, listening to this 15 years later is pretty trippy. hadn't listened to this in probably 15 years, and then I found it, and it was on a mini disc recorder. And it's weird. This, apropos to this weekend, deals a lot with Batman and Superman, which is what the comic book dealt with at the time, DK2, and it's entirely different though, because superheroes and superheroes movies especially weren't quite as pervasive and quite as popular, nearly as popular now as they were then, or then as they were now. You get what I mean. And so a lot of this is kind of prescient in that way, but it was cool, and I love the lo-fi atmosphere to this whole situation. It definitely sounds like we're talking in a bar, and it was a very, very cool experience. I remember leaving it and calling my buddy Jason Pepple in Times Square, I think at the time, because I remember only a couple blocks away from there. I called him, and mind you, Jason Pepple and I, we watched on his birthday the Michael Keaton Batman when it came out on VHS. We watched it, we rewound it, and we watched it immediately again, back to back, just because we liked Batman so much. So he got it. He got the appreciation of it. But anyways, I hope you dig it. It's very, very cool to me. And yeah, here you go.
Just let me know. But anyway, we'll start off with an easy one. So you're planning on doing a new Batman series or something like that?
I've got a new Batman graphic novel.
Okay, a graphic novel.
Yeah.
Is it a new story?
Well, it's a brand new story.
Okay.
Yeah, it's its own thing. I really would rather leave it to DC to announce details about it, but it's a story that I'm quite jazzed about. And new designs for old characters again.
Really?
Yeah, it's going to be a good one.
Yeah. Pretty much goes without saying. What was it like doing Dark Knight Strikes Again? I mean, you said how it's. I think you said it was different, that you had a perspective more of like a 7-year-old this time, isn't that right?
Well, what I did with DK2 was I jumped in and thought, what is it I really love about this stuff? Mm-hmm. Rather than, sounds to be tough to edit, but when I did DK1, mm-hmm. I really was desperate to get his respect.
Yeah.
And the whole effort of it was to show that we could really hold our own, in competition with the European comics that were coming out then, the amazing stuff by Mobius and Bilal and Topi and the rest. And this time it was almost, I wanted some disrespect. I wanted to show that we could be, that we were pop, that we would be part of popular culture. Mm. Because we suffuse popular culture right now.
Yeah.
And there's no reason we shouldn't own that piece of it that we have. Mm-hmm. And say that we're here and we stand tall. Mm-hmm. Rather than saying, knock, Hollywood, will you please accept us?
Yeah.
I'd rather come in and say, okay, we got the Ferrari you want.
Right.
And now, and it's nice and polished and all of that, and now you gotta pay the rent.
How do you feel that stories come out differently, or are written even from a comic to just a book?
You mean a novel? Prose?
Yeah, right. I mean,
very different.
Yeah.
I mean, they're if I were to place 3 markers of completely different forms, they would be comic books, novels, and movies. Mm-hmm.
Do you feel that comics are in between that in a way, being visual? That they are?
No. Comics and novels are bound up together. Mm-hmm. They're the 2 cats bound up in a ball in a Chuck Jones cartoon, fighting with each other. Uh-huh. They belong together. Comics is a literary form. Mm-hmm. It relates to movies only in that it uses pictures. It probably relates to theater more than to movies. Mm-hmm. Movies are their own thing. It's an amazing form. As I've worked in it, I'm astonished by how complex it is.
Yeah.
And also how powerful it is. I think one of the reasons I'm a good fit for comics is that my imagination is extreme.
Yeah.
And I imagine very horrible things happening all the time.
Mm-hmm.
And I put them on the page, and because my form is so soft,
Mm-hmm.
my hard ideas can come through and not offend as much as they might.
Yeah.
When I work in film, I often have to pull myself back and go, Frank, yeah, you could draw that, but if it's a real person shedding real blood, it's going to feel a lot different.
In the same token, though, the comics that you like to do, obviously, you kind of do like to offend, or not maybe necessarily offend, but
I like to offend. Yeah.
How important is it, for the most part, that in the stories you do, you're both the writer and the artist? So I mean, you can tell it in both ways.
Sometimes I need to pause.
No problem. Take your time. Take a sip if you want.
It's usually very important that I draw my own book, and the exceptions are when I'm preparing something for somebody else, because I do regard the drawing as the most important part of the process. But because it's telling most of the story.
Right.
If the writing's telling most of the story, then the artist hasn't done his job.
Yeah.
I've been graced with the opportunity to work with the very best in the field, with Bill Sienkiewicz, and Dave Gibbons, and Jeff Darrow, and the list goes on.
Right.
David Mazzucchelli. These people are amazing. They teach me by what they do, and I learn how to be a better artist myself.
Yeah.
But really, there are a lot of projects where I simply have to draw myself because I can't see them done another way.
Yeah.
And
right.
it's just a different thing. It's I'm at home when I'm drawing my own work.
Yeah. Is it easier to change your style of writing, to go with a project, or your style of your drawing? Because the styles, they differ so much, from a Sin City or a Batman.
Yeah.
I mean, is it kind of like putting yourself in a different mode or a different thought process in that respect?
It's like if you think of a story as a patient you're operating on, or a building you want to build, everything starts to build out from a central theme, and everything from the writing style to the drawing style. What I love about switching gears, like I did from Sin City to Batman, was that I was all of a sudden looking at superheroes going, hey, what's fun about this? What's cool about this?
Yeah.
And what's great about these guys? And I noticed that everybody got awfully damn realistic about the superheroes. And I wanted to take it back into cartoon land.
Yeah.
Yeah, I want their hands to be bigger than their heads because I say so. Because I like the way it looks.
Yeah. Is that important for you to do the story for yourself, as opposed to what an expectation might be from a sequel or something like that to a certain issue?
Oh, from the get-go, DK2 was a suicide mission. I mean, I knew that. I mean, people were going to be pissed off whatever I did. And so I decided to just have an absolute ball with it. And I really like where that took me. I like the fact that I drew it in a very cartoony fashion, and Lynn took the computer, her first job on the computer, and she knocks it out of the park with this bizarro pop look.
Amazing.
And the story is equally outrageous. I kind of feel that the only way to do another Dark Knight was to do something that was as outrageous as the first one. And just as people were shocked by the first one, they were shocked by the second one, and I couldn't be happier.
Did the process change through the 3 issues? Obviously, there was something in between that kind of occurred, but I mean, was there something that, as you were going along, things changed, or in that respect?
Well, I mean, things changed creatively.
Or just with dealing with the characters. Because I mean, reading that, it seemed like the story didn't deal with Batman as much,
Right.
as obviously the first one. So was it kind of a conscious effort to, maybe tell more about Superman than you would, or did that just kind of evolve, or was that something that?
No, it was. Well, from the get-go, I really did. I keep saying from the get-go. Why am I saying that?
I'm repeating myself too.
Well, but from the start, I knew that Superman was going to be a much bigger player in this one because he was the big open question from the first Dark Knight. I mean, you kind of like see him as the shill for the president in the first one, and I wanted to go deeper into that. And then I came across the notion of Lara, his daughter, and his romance with Wonder Woman, which is, come on, have we not all dreamed of that? I mean,
Mallrats.
Was it Mallrats?
In the movie.
Was it in?
Yeah. Jason Lee asked Stan Lee or something about that.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
I didn't see it. So. But I just thought, why not take the distance? Let him have a daughter. And he's old enough to have an adult daughter.
Right.
And then you've got a whole new character who's fascinating because she's a Kryptonian. She's not humble. And her lack of humility, I felt, made Lara the pivotal character of the series. Because she essentially is saying to her father and her mother, we have no reason to humble ourselves to these people.
Yeah.
That we're stronger than they are, we're smarter than they are, etc. And that sets up a fun potential conflict to come.
Yeah.
So Batman took backseat for a while until the end, as you notice. He kind of came roaring back.
And it seemed to me, in a way, I mean, he was kind of just like the puppet master of everyone.
Well,
I mean, So I mean, he's so much.
Well, Batman's a genius.
Yeah.
Superman is not a genius.
Exactly. I love Batman, obviously, but is it more fun to do stories, with characters like that, or is it more, fun to come up with stories of your own?
Oh, it really depends on my mood. I mean, I'm going to be doing some more Batman stuff because I'm really in the mood for it now. For some reason, I'm just like digging it. But then I'm going to be off doing something like Sin City or another historical piece. What I like is the variety.
Yeah.
I think comic books tend to starve when they're too focused on one genre or one subject.
Right.
And I would starve, but I refuse to starve. So I jump around a lot. But right now, I'm on kind of a Batman jag, and I'm having a ball with it.
Yeah. Have you ever thought about doing, a continuous series? Is that something that just doesn't?
What do you mean, the monthly?
Yeah.
Well, I don't know. I mean, I could imagine doing it.
Or could?
Because the rhythm is wonderful when you're working on a monthly comic. The rhythm is a lot of fun. My problem is I don't think that the monthly comics are long for this world anyway.
Yeah.
I think that we're heading into a book market now.
Really?
Well, because monthly comics cost too damn much. They made sense when they were 12 cents or 25 cents.
Yeah.
They don't make sense at $2.50 for, 10 minutes?
Right. Yeah.
They just don't make sense.
Do you think the proliferation of the collectible market and that, do you think that kind of hurt comics as a whole, looking at it as kind of an investment instead of a storytelling medium?
Rhetorical question.
Yeah.
Of course.
But in the same respect, thinking of it, I mean, in a way, probably the original Dark Knight probably played a part in that. Like the Star Wars series, kind of came into the blockbuster movie mentality.
I don't know. Yeah. I don't really care.
Yeah.
I mean, the thing is that the only relationship I have with this stuff is that I do my stories and I hope people like them. And whether it's Sin City or Dark Knight or 300 or whatever, I'm putting my stuff out in the best form I find for it. I do think that the monthly pamphlet is finished. I think it's coughing up blood, and nobody really wants to like, take it out back and shoot it once and for all, but they will. They'll have to.
Have you seen that just stories have kind of run dry and are just being repeated again and again in a monthly aspect like that?
It's funny because back when I was working in Marvel Comics on Daredevil.
Ben Affleck was in town. Did you talk to him about the movie at all?
Oh, yeah, I was just on the set.
Oh,
yeah. Those guys are great.
Yeah.
That crew on the I wish they ran Marvel Comics.
Yeah.
But back when I was working for Marvel on Daredevil, Jim Shooter and I had a number of long conversations because he and I worked very closely on figuring out how I was going to move that title forward once I became the writer. And I said to him at one point, I said, look, I think that we've got a choice here. We can either do the same story with different villains every month, or we can do different stories with the same villains every month.
Yeah.
And his eyes brightened, and he said, yeah, absolutely. So I kept the Kingpin and Bullseye as villains across this long run of stories.
Yeah.
And it worked out quite well. It's the monthly thing can work. It's much like writing soap opera. But you've got to know what you're doing.
Yeah.
And if it's just a product that's being pumped out, the reader can smell that. Readers are smart.
Yeah. And especially...
Hell, they can read.
Let alone a monthly, but for issues like Batman and Superman, it's a weekly, if not 2 a week.
Yeah.
So, how many times, especially... I've always thought of Superman... how many different stories can you do with, someone who's invincible? And at this point, it's past 3,000.
You make him invincible.
4,000, right?
Yeah.
What's your opinion on Superman? Just reading, the Dark Knight Returns story. It really comes across like you don't like him at all.
I know.
Is that the kind of the way? And do you kind of see Superman as a representation for possibly the industry, or is it anything?
You always
like that?
hurt the ones you love. The fact is, I love Superman. I really do.
Yeah.
And I if you look at, I treat him like I do Daredevil. He has the worst time.
I'm sorry to interject, but the page, I think it was in issue 2, when you split the panels of his face when Candor, they said they were going to blow up Candor or whatever.
Yeah.
And the different boxes of his face and then the tear. I thought that was amazing.
Oh,
that was amazing. I thought.
Thanks.
That was just awesome. I thought, but
I related completely to Superman. On the other hand, I also related to Lara, who was the contradiction of Superman much more than Batman was. Because Lara was the one who directly challenged him, and about his precepts. Said, why? Why are you being so humble? And I think that made her probably the most thrilling character of the series for me. Even more so than Carrie, who I'm always in love with.
Yeah, pretty good. As far as Batman goes, the different styles over the years, it seems like the TV show screwed up Batman for a generation. From the original perspective of it, have you found that the movies have screwed up Batman for another generation?
No. I don't think the TV show screwed things up, but I don't think the movies did. The comics did. When the comics are good, everybody goes for it. When Neil Adams showed up, everybody went like, "Whoa, Batman's scary!" And it sang. And when I did Dark Knight, the same thing happened. But without the comics, you don't have anything. And the movies came out, and in fact, the first Batman movie was a really interesting piece of work. It was a really thoughtful and witty piece of work. That certainly embraced the darker version of Batman. They seem to have strayed since, but it's Batman is just picture a big diamond with all these tons of facets around it. You can throw it against the wall, you can throw it against the floor, it never breaks,
Yeah.
and it's got endless facets. That's
Yeah.
Batman. You
Yeah.
can't screw him up. I mean, I know 10 ways of doing Batman, and they all work.
Right.
And that's really what the myth is.
Yeah.
That's why it works so well.
Speaking of myths, how much does mythology play, in your writing process? Obviously, with 300, it's not so much a myth, but
Yeah, that's history. Yeah.
but just Roman, obviously, or that area, Greek, and do you read back, and try and bring back certain concepts and things like that?
I read a lot of history.
Yeah.
And a lot of history involves mythology.
Right.
And when it comes to when it comes to these characters, when it comes to the superheroes, for instance, I break them down into mythological terms. And the interesting thing about the mythologies from Marvel Comics and DC Comics, it's very different about the two, is that DC has gods and heroes, where Marvel only has heroes.
Right.
I mean, the heroes were in Greek mythology were the products of nasty liaisons between Zeus and immortal women.
Yeah.
That's how we got Hercules and all the rest.
Yeah.
Or Heracles. But the real gods, DC's got the only three. They've got Batman, Superman, and Wonder Woman.
Mm-hmm.
And those are always the three principles of their mythology, because they all have a godlike stature, and also they're three of the oldest characters.
Yeah.
Whereas you get to the Flash, the Atom, hero's fine.
Yeah.
He gets really little. He runs really fast. Great.
Yeah.
And all the Marvel stuff is essentially heroes. It's Daredevil. Well, he's blind. What a power! And even the Hulk, he gets mad. He turns green.
Right.
But mythology plays into it, but it's got to be done intelligently.
Mm-hmm.
And my feeling is that with DC you walk more carefully with the gods than you do with the heroes. The heroes can be funnier.
Yeah.
But the gods are gigantic.
Yeah. But Batman, though, he's obviously the most flawed, and in a certain respect, he has no powers. I mean, is that?
Oh, but he's got most.
Yeah.
He's the most powerful of all.
Right. Exactly.
Yeah.
I mean, is that something that probably what draws people to him in that respect? I mean, in the simple fact that
he's the effort character.
Maybe in the simple fact that when you're a kid, you think, man, if I went to gymnastics and lifted every day, is
just murder my family.
Right.
I think there's an appeal there. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I mean that I could be Batman. Sure.
Yeah. Did you ever think
put that in quotes, please? I couldn't be Batman.
Yeah.
Well, I couldn't be Robin. But yeah, I mean, isn't that part of it? Isn't that part of what we imagine? That I could do that.
Yeah.
The same way that I think in some ways Superman's appeal is more juvenile.
Mm-hmm.
That is, if I could fly.
Right.
Whereas Batman's appeal is more adolescent.
Mm-hmm.
Where if I really work hard, I could throw criminals through windows and say Clint Eastwood lines every day of the week.
Yeah. Is it more fun to do Superman or Batman when you're doing these stories? Because
what a question.
Because Superman, it seems that you get out all your frustration on Superman, and then Batman, you put him in one panel just beating the shit out of Superman.
You're ignoring the fact that I had all of Superman's teeth knocked out.
Yeah.
Everybody didn't notice that.
Yeah.
It's just like, and they say you're so hard on Superman. He kept his teeth.
Yeah. Yeah.
Batman had like 3 teeth.
Exactly. Maybe it's just that when Batman's having that done to him, he's smiling.
Yeah,
You
he
know?
runs right into it. Yeah.
And it's almost as if he's asking for it. When Superman's doing it, though, it's just one frustration after another.
Yeah.
Just showing how stupid he is, or falling into the trap, or something like
I don't
that.
know how stupid he is. He's just.
This is coming from a blatant Batman fan, so.
Sorry.
This is coming from a blatant Batman fan, so.
Sure. No, I understand. I am too. I really love both characters. It's just I thought when I first talked to DC about Dark Knight 1, I said to them that Batman and Superman wouldn't be friends, and they were surprised by that. They were very open to it because they gave me a tremendous mandate to take it wherever I wanted to. But I said that they hate each other. They've always hated each other. These two people would hate each other because one is a street kid whose parents were murdered in front of his eyes. He has one view of the world, and he's Batman, and the other is this Iowa kid who goes golly, and just thinks the world's a wonderful place, and he lives in Metropolis, which apparently there isn't any dirt in Metropolis as far as I can tell.
Yeah.
And so I took the distance, and ultimately Superman had to be the symbol of the government machine, and Batman the Dionysus to his Apollo. Getting back to gods, and it worked. It's a right chemistry for the two characters. It doesn't make either of them a villain, though.
Right.
So if you say you really hate Superman, don't you?
I don't.
No, but what I mean.
Right. Okay.
What I mean is what is coming across is Batman's point of view, and when I'm writing Batman, he can't stand the guy. I mean, for one thing, his whole attitude is, if I had heat vision, you know what I'd do with it? Yeah.
Right. But you bringing it in also, how important is Robin to Batman? Because, it seems like the really good Batman stories, it's almost as if Batman is searching out someone to be a Robin, someone to keep him in line and keep him in check. I mean, is that? Do you think Robin, or just the idea of Robin, is important just to the idea of Batman?
It's easy to forget that. Hey, how you doing? Good to see you. Yeah. How about Pilsner? How about you?
Bass. Yes, please.
How important is Robin? As kind of like a pacemaker. I don't know. I mean, how important?
The pacemaker. That's like in the end.
Well, I think that, we got to understand how this stuff was actually created over the years, and Jerry Robinson came up with Robin. Right. Robinson. Yeah. Do the math. But he came up with Robin in order to brighten up the series. And these things just accumulate over the years, and eventually it falls to people like me to go, well, how do we justify this? Because, I think that it's questionable that a responsible adult would... I think it's questionable that a responsible adult would run out dressed like Dracula. Would run around dressed like Dracula and have a young charge facing bullets. I just don't, it doesn't leap to mind as something I'd do. And so across time we had to justify it a bit more, because at first it made perfect sense. It was all nonsense anyway.
Yeah.
And then I thought, geez, I didn't want Robin in Dark Knight. I didn't want there to be a Robin at all. They had agreed. DC had agreed there would be no Robin. And then I was riding in an airplane with John Byrne, and he and I were talking, and he said, "You've got to put Robin in, and she's got to be a girl."
Really?
And I shook my head. He drew me a picture.
Yeah.
And I was sold on the idea.
Huh.
And so I came up with Carrie Kelly. But it was John was right.
Yeah.
Batman needs Robin. I don't know why.
Yeah. He didn't tell you to turn her into Catgirl in the second one, did he?
No.
Well,
That was all me.
Yeah. How did that thought come around? Just.
That was easy.
Yeah.
When I started putting together DK2, when I started putting together DK2, I obviously Carrie had to be a central figure because with the Dark Knight thing, she is as central a figure as he is.
Yeah.
We experience she is more us than he is because he becomes more remote as it goes on because he's such a huge character. And so I thought, what would be her next incarnation? What would be phase 2 of Carrie? And I thought, well, here she is. She's now 16. She is clearly in love with Batman.
Yeah.
It's a crush. It's not sexual or whatever. There's nothing weird like that. What image would she pick? Except the sexiest woman in Batman's life, which is Catwoman.
Yeah.
She also looked pretty good that way, I thought.
Oh yeah. Well, of course, we're 16 though, but I was kind of jumping around here. But based on your success, I mean, how much of a role or how important you feel it is, with your stature that you stay testing the limits and pushing things, so other artists following you are able to go, well, I mean, let me try something new. I mean, is that something that you really think about, or just does it come naturally?
It's who I am.
Yeah.
I mean, I've got to push it. Hope I die before I get old. I'm having too good a time. And when I see situations that I think are stupid, I tend to challenge them.
I think you've said a couple of times that the industry is kind of reliant on certain things that it's just done over the years. And do you see a point where it's going to be able to break free from the status quo that has come about, from years of inertia? I mean, do you see a time that where artists are going to be the most important components of the comic book?
I think it's always going to be a juggling act. I mean, if you'd asked me this question 10 years ago, I would have given you a very different answer.
Yeah.
But what I think it really is that there's going to be a certain amount of loyalty to these brands and to these heroes. Certain number of people who really don't care who draws Superman as long as Superman comes out and they see the stories. But more and more, it's becoming a place where people recognize artists for who they are. There is a difference between when one guy does Wonder Woman and when somebody else does Wonder Woman. There is a big difference now, and that's going to broaden. I don't think we're gonna. I don't think we're going to all of a sudden morph into the prose novel matrix of how things work. Where all of a sudden there's a Stephen King and there's a Daniel Steele and so on. But I also don't think we're going all the way into the total franchise market, which is like there are Star Wars movies, and who cares who directed it, who wrote it, whatever. It's just it's another goddamn Star Wars, But I think that somewhere in between, comics is always going to be a place where outlaws get away with shit. I mean, it's like you look at the best periods in comics history. You look at the 50s with the ECs, and the 60s with Robert Crumb and the Undergrounds. and later in the 60s, Marvel with Jack Kirby and Stan Lee. And in the 80s, when some of us kicked up a fuss there, I think that we're going to see this angry kind of restive feel surface from time to time, but it's going to defy definition.
Yeah. Well, do you think that, 80, 86, do you think that in time, like a generation that grew up on Dark Knight Returns, in that respect, is it going to, in 5-10 years, when those guys, are able to do it, is it going to kind of just revamp or redo the industry, in a way? Because, when you were younger, you had your influences and, your ideas, and you brought that to the table, but, the way things changed so much, in the mid to late 80s, is that going to, do you think that's going to do something eventually?
I don't think it's going to be eventually, I think soon. But what it's going to be is something we've never seen before. I've seen a lot of what's coming up with the crowd who's now 20, 30 years old. Yeah. They're doing some amazing stuff, but it owes nothing to the past. It's all its own. And I think that it's very funny because when I hang out with James Kalchaka, for instance, I think, I'm looking at somebody who's just beginning to start going through what I've been through and seeing an entire generation come along. But I don't really think it's going to owe that much to superheroes. Yeah. There isn't a lot of energy in the superheroes these days. I wish there were, because they're a lot of fun. Right. But what I really see that's fascinating that's going on is in much more individual work.
Yeah. So, meaning, just certain different characters, or?
No, I mean stuff that isn't superheroes at all.
Okay. Somewhere like the Sin City.
Yeah, but even further out. If you look at some of the stuff the indies are doing now, Madison Quell just produced a book called Cuckoo about her own experiences with split personality disorder, and it's astonishing work. It's riveting. And I'm just seeing it's starting to break open in all these different ways.
Yeah, right. But it seems to me, no matter how much it breaks away, do you think there is a need for these characters? And maybe not the Flashes.
No, I know. Yeah, there is. It's a profound need. They are our mythology. We define ourselves by them. Every generation produces a Batman and a Superman. Yeah. And in the 70s, they reintroduced Superman as a yuppie. Yeah. A nervous yuppie. And it worked like a charm. In the 80s, they reintroduced Batman as a very... in the movies, they reintroduce him as a rather troubled man. But these all work. These characters are it's like I said about the Diamond earlier. They are indestructible. You can't kill them. And they'll be around for as long as we're alive.
Yeah. Did you happen to read the Bruce Wayne, The Fugitive series? It's a point that's been brought up a lot of times, but do you feel that Batman is more of a mask worn by Bruce Wayne, or Bruce Wayne's the mask worn by Batman? Because, really the character is more Batman, and, Bruce Wayne is kind of the alter ego, if you will. Is that kind of how you feel about the subject? Or?
See, I think the whole idea of alter egos is kind of funny. Yeah. In the long run. Yeah. Do you know Zorro's name?
No.
Don Diego. But you wouldn't know it.
Cigar.
But you wouldn't know it.
Yeah.
The same way. It's like, who the hell is Bruce Wayne? Who cares? It's like the whole whole time I was working on DK2, I was going, I don't care who Clark Kent is. I really don't care who Barry Allen is.
Right.
All that. I mean, if I want drama, I'll go to drama. But if I want superheroes, I want guys who can fly and run real fast and get real little. You know, get real little. And so is he Batman or Bruce Wayne? Well, he's Batman.
Yeah.
He's fucking Batman, right?
There's the title right there.
Yeah, I'll go over big in Columbus.
What's going on here? All right, one more question, and then we can just chit chat.
Okay.
I've always wondered,
You've got a good memory because you haven't even looked at notes.
Yeah, no, I've read notes and stuff in a way. I don't like taking notes, but is Batman did you find Batman a more interesting character at 50 as opposed to, in his prime?
I'm about to do him in his prime.
Okay.
And I'm finding that fascinating too.
Yeah.
They're very different characters.
Right.
Though.
Yeah. And you've also done him at his outset. So, I mean, all three stages. At his beginning and with your...
No, but the new book I'm doing, he's 24.
Okay.
So he'll be very young in it.
Okay. But I'm probably further along than his first ski mask adventure.
Yeah.
So I guess you've done them in all three stages. I mean, is it different on each one?
Oh yeah. He's a character that's constantly recreated whenever anybody does him. But that's the way it is with these characters because they are in a weird way community property. I mean, God knows DC's lawyers love conniption hearing that. But Catwoman, for instance, just to pick a name, Catwoman, a character that laid fallow for a long time, and I came up with a different interpretation with David Mazzucchelli in Batman Year One, and since then, Ed Brubaker and Darwin Cook have gone on to recreate the character in their hands. Clearly influenced by what I did. And now I'm doing her again in my new book, influenced by what they did. Yeah. So it's like we pass it around.
Yeah.
It isn't like Sin City where I control the whole works.
Yeah.
But it's much more of a sense of community with this stuff.
Yeah. All
Did
right.
I completely dodge your question?
I think so. I should have wrote some notes. No, you didn't.
Okay.
The last one. If you taking away from the Dark Knight Returns original, if you had to write the death of Batman, or
I've got it written.
Oh yeah. Hey, share a little bit of it.
No.
No. All right. No problem. I'll let you keep that to yourself. But stop this recording stuff here.